The fake tears came easily as Naia approached the billionaire's table, but the recording device hidden in her collar felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She was supposed to expose Lucas Montgomery as a charity thief who stole from homeless families. Instead, he bought her lunch, offered her a job, and somehow knew she was lying about everything. "You're not really desperate," he said quietly. "You're investigating me." Naia's blood turned to ice. He knew. But instead of calling security, Lucas smiled and said the words that changed everything. "The people who gave you those documents about me, they're the real criminals." Now Naia had 24 hours to decide. Trust the billionaire she'd been sent to destroy, or become the next victim of a conspiracy that had already ruined dozens of innocent lives. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get into the story. Naia had been tracking Lucas Montgomery for 6 months, following a paper trail of suspicious charity donations and shell companies that painted Chicago's most beloved billionaire as a fraud. The Montgomery Foundation claimed to feed thousands of homeless families each month, but Naia's sources suggested the money was being funneled into offshore accounts while people starved on the streets. Today, she was going to get the proof she needed. "Remember," she whispered to sleeping Caleb, "we're desperate. We haven't eaten in 2 days. Mama's just trying to survive." It wasn't entirely a lie. Since taking custody of Caleb after her sister Zara's overdose, Naia had been barely scraping by. Investigative journalism didn't pay much, and childcare costs had eaten through her savings faster than she'd expected. But she had enough for groceries. This performance was about exposing the truth, not actual hunger. Lucas Montgomery sat alone at his usual corner table, just like her research had predicted. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., same restaurant, same table, same routine. The tech mogul looked exactly like his photos. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sandy brown hair and the kind of sharp jawline that graced magazine covers. His navy suit probably cost more than Naia's rent, and the watch on his wrist could fund a small charity for a year. He was also, according to her investigation, stealing millions from the people who needed it most. Naia took a shaky breath and approached his table. Lucas was cutting into what looked like an expensive steak, barely a quarter of it eaten, while scrolling through his phone with the casual indifference of someone who'd never worried about his next meal. "Excuse me, sir." Naia's voice came out smaller than she'd practiced, but the nervousness actually helped sell the act. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but—" Lucas looked up from his phone, and Naia felt her breath catch. His eyes were a striking blue-gray, the kind that seemed to see right through people. For a moment, she worried he could somehow sense her deception. "Yes." His voice was deeper than she'd expected, with a warmth that didn't match the cold businessman she'd been researching. "I was wondering." Naia shifted Caleb's weight, letting her voice tremble slightly. "May I have your leftovers, sir? For my baby. We haven't eaten in 2 days, and I just—" She let the words trail off, watching Lucas's face carefully. Most wealthy people would either ignore her completely or toss her a 20 to make her go away. Either reaction would work for her story about how the rich treated the desperate. Instead, Lucas's expression shifted completely. His eyes moved from Naia's face to the sleeping baby, then back again, and something changed in his features. Not pity or disgust, but something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. 2 days? He asked quietly, setting down his fork. "Yes, sir. I lost my job last week, and my sister. She can't help anymore." The lie came easily, mixed with enough truth to make it convincing. Zara really couldn't help anymore, just not for the reasons Naia was implying. Lucas studied her for a long moment, and Naia had the unsettling feeling that he was seeing more than she wanted him to see. His gaze was intense, calculating, like he was solving a puzzle. "What's your name?" The question caught her off guard. She'd expected him to either give her the food or call security. "Naia," she said, using her real name because lying about everything felt too risky. "And the baby?" "Caleb." Another truth. It was easier to keep track of real details. Lucas nodded slowly, then did something completely unexpected. He stood up and gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit down, Naia." "Sir, I don't want to impose. I just need—" "Sit. Please." Something in his tone made her obey. Naia settled into the chair, adjusting Caleb's carrier while trying to figure out what was happening. This wasn't how the scenario was supposed to play out. Lucas flagged down a waiter. "Could you bring another menu, please? And maybe something for the baby. Do you have any of those little crackers kids like?" "Of course, Mr. Montgomery." Naia blinked. "Sir, I appreciate the kindness, but I can't afford." "Did I ask you to pay?" Lucas's voice was gentle but firm. "When's the last time you had a real meal, Naia? And don't lie to me. I can see it in your eyes." The directness of his question threw her completely off balance. She'd prepared for dismissal, for condescension, for the cold indifference she'd been told to expect from Chicago's elite. She hadn't prepared for genuine concern. It's been a while," she admitted, which was actually true. Between work and taking care of Caleb, she'd been living on coffee and whatever she could grab between deadlines. "I thought so." Lucas leaned back in his chair, studying her with those unsettling eyes. "You know, most people who approach me for money have a rehearsed sob story. Yours feels different." Naia's heart hammered against her ribs. "Different how?" "Real. Raw. Like you're not just playing a part." "Have you ever had someone see right through you when you thought you were being clever? Tell me about it in the comments." The waiter returned with a menu and a small plate of crackers. Caleb had woken up and was making soft babbling noises, his tiny hands reaching for the colorful items on the table. "He's beautiful," Lucas said, and there was something wistful in his voice. "How old?" 18 months. Naia's maternal instincts kicked in automatically as she pulled a small toy from her bag to keep Caleb occupied. "He's normally not this quiet. I think the rain makes him sleepy." "Good thing. Nothing worse than a cranky baby in a fancy restaurant." Lucas smiled, and Naia was surprised by how genuine it looked. "Trust me, I've been that cranky baby." "You've been to fancy restaurants since you were 18 months old?" "No," Lucas laughed, and the sound was warm and unexpected. "I meant I've been the cranky one disrupting everyone else's meal. Different circumstances, though." There was a story there, Naia could tell. Something in the way his expression shifted, like he was remembering something both fond and painful. "Order whatever you want," Lucas said, pushing the menu toward her. "Seriously. Whatever you and Caleb need." Naia stared at the menu, genuinely confused. This wasn't the cold, calculating businessman she'd been investigating. This was someone who seemed to actually care about whether she and her nephew were fed. "Sir, I don't understand. Why are you being so kind to a stranger?" Lucas was quiet for a moment, watching Caleb play with his toy. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry. Really hungry, not just I skipped lunch hungry. And I know what it's like to have people look right through you like you don't exist." The honesty in his voice made Naia's chest tight. You do. Foster care. 8 different homes between the ages of 6 and 16. Some of them were good people who just didn't have enough resources. Others. Lucas shrugged. Let's just say I learned early that being hungry was better than eating food that came with strings attached. Naia felt her carefully constructed assumptions about Lucas Montgomery crumbling. Foster care. That wasn't in any of the background research she'd done. His official biography talked about his brilliant business mind and his rise to success, but nothing about a difficult childhood. How did you? She started, then caught herself. She was supposed to be a desperate single mother, not a journalist conducting an interview. How did I end up here? Lucas gestured around the expensive restaurant. Smart investments, good timing, and a lot of luck. Plus, once you've been truly hungry, you never forget what it feels like. It motivates you. The waiter approached their table. Are you ready to order? Lucas looked at Naia expectantly. She scanned the menu quickly, her mind still reeling from his revelation about foster care. Could I have the chicken sandwich? And maybe some fruit for the baby. Make that 2 chicken sandwiches, Lucas added. And could you bring a high chair? I think our friend here might be more comfortable. Naia watched in amazement as Lucas easily took charge of the situation, making sure both she and Caleb were taken care of. This wasn't the behavior of a man who was stealing from charity. This was someone who understood what it meant to need help. But her sources had been so sure. The financial records, the suspicious transactions, the shell companies. All of it pointed to a massive fraud operation. Could she have gotten it wrong? So tell me about yourself, Naia, Lucas said once the waiter had left. What kind of work do you do? Or did, before you lost your job? Another test, Naia realized. He was still evaluating her story, looking for inconsistencies. I'm a writer, she said, choosing something close to the truth. Freelance stuff, mostly. Articles, blog posts, that kind of thing. It's not steady work, and with Caleb. It's hard to write when you're worried about childcare. Exactly. Naia felt a pang of guilt at how understanding he was being. His mother, my sister, she's not able to help right now. I'm sorry. That must be incredibly difficult. Lucas's sympathy felt genuine, which made Naia's deception feel even worse. She was starting to like this man, which was a problem. Journalists weren't supposed to like their targets. Can I ask you something? Naia said, deciding to take a small risk. Why do you eat alone? I mean, someone like you must have friends, business associates. Lucas's smile turned slightly sad. Someone like me. You know, successful, important. Success can be isolating, Lucas said carefully. People want things from you. Money, connections, opportunities. It's hard to know who's genuinely interested in your company and who's just working an angle. The irony of his words hit Naia like a punch to the gut. Here she was, literally working an angle, while he was being kinder to her than anyone had been in months. That sounds lonely, she said softly. It is. But it's also safe. No one can disappoint you if you don't let them get close enough to try. Caleb chose that moment to drop his toy, and both Lucas and Naia reached for it at the same time. Their hands brushed as they both grabbed for the small stuffed elephant, and Naia felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. Lucas felt it too. She could see it in the way his eyes widened slightly, the way he paused before pulling his hand back. Sorry, he said quietly. It's fine, Naia managed, though her heart was doing strange things in her chest. Their food arrived, breaking the tension of the moment. Naia realized she actually was hungry. Stress and sleepless nights with Caleb had left her running on fumes. The chicken sandwich tasted better than anything she'd eaten in weeks. Good? Lucas asked, and she nodded, suddenly embarrassed by how quickly she was eating. Sorry, I just... Don't apologize. Eat as much as you want. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, Caleb contentedly munching on small pieces of fruit that Lucas had cut up for him. It felt strangely domestic, like they were just a family having lunch together instead of a journalist and her target. That's when Lucas's phone rang. Montgomery, he answered, his voice immediately shifting back to business mode. What? When did this happen? Naia watched his expression change from relaxed to concerned to furious in the span of 30 seconds. How much? Lucas asked, his knuckles white as he gripped the phone. Jesus Christ. Have you called the police? A pause then. No, don't do that yet. I'll handle this myself. Give me an hour. He hung up and sat back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. For a moment, he looked exhausted, older than his 30-something years. Everything okay? Naia asked, though she was burning with curiosity about what could have shaken him so badly. Work crisis, Lucas said tersely. I'm sorry, but I need to go. Are you finished eating? Yes, thank you so much. This was incredibly kind of you. Lucas signaled for the check, then turned back to her. Naia, can I ask you something? Of course. If someone offered you a job, steady income, benefits, something that would let you take care of Caleb properly, would you take it? The question caught her completely off guard. Yes, of course. But why would you? I might have something. Nothing glamorous, just administrative work at my foundation. But it would be stable, and we have excellent childcare benefits. Naia's mind raced. A job at the Montgomery Foundation would give her inside access to the financial records she needed. It was the perfect opportunity to complete her investigation. It was also an incredibly generous offer from a man who had no reason to help her. That's an amazing offer, she said carefully. But I don't understand why you'd want to help me. Lucas was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Because everyone deserves a second chance. And because sometimes the people who need help the most are the ones who are too proud to ask for it. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. Call this number tomorrow morning. Ask for Rebecca Chen. She's our HR director. Tell her I sent you. Naia took the card with trembling hands. Mr. Montgomery, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just promise me you'll call. I promise. Lucas stood up and left money on the table. Far more than the bill would have been. Take care of yourself, Naia. And take care of Caleb. He started to walk away, then paused and looked back at her. Oh, and Naia. Next time you're investigating someone, you might want to work on your cover story. The details matter. With that bombshell, he walked out of the restaurant, leaving Naia sitting frozen in her chair with Caleb babbling happily in his carrier. He knew. Lucas Montgomery knew exactly who she was and what she was doing. The question was, what was he planning to do about it? What do you think Lucas is really up to? Is he the villain Naia thinks he is? Or is there more to this story? Share your theories in the comments. Naia sat in her cramped apartment that night, staring at Lucas Montgomery's business card while Caleb played with building blocks on the living room floor. Her laptop was open beside her, displaying months of research that suddenly felt incomplete and wrong. How had he known she was a journalist? More importantly, why had he still offered her a job after figuring out she was investigating him? Her phone buzzed with a text from her editor, Marcus Torres. "Where's the Montgomery exposé? Publisher wants it by Friday or we're pulling the story." Naia's stomach clenched. She'd spent 6 months building this case, following leads that painted Lucas as a charity fraud. But the man she'd met today didn't match the villain in her research. Either he was an incredible actor, or she'd gotten something fundamentally wrong. She pulled up the financial records again, studying the suspicious transactions that had started her investigation. $3 million transferred from the Montgomery Foundation to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. Another $2 million to an account linked to a private security firm. Payments that looked like money laundering, kickbacks, or worse. But what if there was another explanation? Naia picked up her phone and dialed the number Lucas had written on his card. Montgomery Foundation, this is Rebecca Chen. "Hi, this is Naia Robinson. Lucas Montgomery asked me to call about a potential job opportunity." "Oh yes. Mr. Montgomery told me to expect your call. Could you come in tomorrow morning? Say 10 o'clock. That would be perfect." "Wonderful. Our offices are downtown at 200 West Madison. Ask for me at the front desk." After hanging up, Naia stared at her reflection in the black laptop screen. Tomorrow she'd walk into the heart of what she believed was a criminal operation, with Lucas knowing exactly who she was. It felt like walking into a trap. But it was also her only chance to get the truth. The next morning, Naia dressed carefully in her one good interview suit and dropped Caleb off at her neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Park had been watching him occasionally when Naia had meetings, and she'd agreed to keep him for a few hours in exchange for help with her English homework. The Montgomery Foundation occupied 3 floors of a gleaming downtown tower. The lobby was filled with photos of smiling families receiving food boxes, children in clean clothes at new playgrounds, elderly people in what looked like comfortable housing. If this was all fake, it was an incredibly elaborate deception. Rebecca Chen turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who greeted Naia with genuine warmth. "Lucas speaks very highly of you," Rebecca said as she led Naia through the offices. "He said you made quite an impression yesterday. I'm sure he told you about my circumstances. He mentioned you were going through a difficult time. We've all been there." Rebecca's smile was kind but professional. "The position we have available is in our grant verification department. Basically, you'd help track how our funding is being used by recipient organizations." Naia's pulse quickened. Grant verification meant access to financial records, transaction details, exactly what she needed for her investigation. "That sounds perfect. The work can be demanding," Rebecca continued. "We take our accountability very seriously here. Every dollar has to be tracked, every expense justified. Some people find it tedious, but it's crucial work." They passed through an open office space where dozens of employees worked at computers, phones constantly ringing. It looked like any other non-profit office. Busy, slightly chaotic, filled with people who seemed genuinely committed to their work. "This is where you'd be working," Rebecca said, gesturing to a cubicle near the window. "The salary is $45,000 annually, plus full health benefits and childcare assistance. We have an on-site daycare that Caleb could attend." $45,000 was more than Naia made freelancing, and the benefits would be life-changing. If this was all real, Lucas Montgomery was offering her a way out of the financial struggle that had defined her life since taking custody of Caleb. If it was real, when would I start? Naia asked. Today, if you'd like. We're pretty informal here. Rebecca handed her a tablet. Just fill out the basic employment forms, and I'll get you set up with a workspace. As Naia completed the paperwork, she noticed something odd. Every employee she could see was working intently, phones ringing constantly, people moving with purpose. If this was a front operation, they were certainly putting effort into making it look legitimate. Rebecca, she said carefully, can I ask you something? How long have you worked here? 3 years. I came over from the Chicago Food Bank when Lucas offered me this position. And you've never had any concerns about the foundation's operations? Rebecca's eyebrows rose slightly. What kind of concerns? I've heard rumors about some charities not being entirely honest about where their money goes. Ah! Rebecca sat down across from Naia, her expression serious. You're wondering if we're legitimate. I didn't mean to imply. It's a fair question. There are a lot of charity scams out there. Rebecca pulled out her own tablet and scrolled through several screens. Here are our public financials for the last 3 years. Every donation, every expense, every grant we've awarded. We're also audited quarterly by an independent firm. She showed Naia page after page of meticulously documented transactions. Food purchases, housing assistance, medical aid, all of it backed up with receipts, photographs, and beneficiary testimonials. The shell company you're probably wondering about, Rebecca continued, and Naia nearly choked, is our disaster relief fund. We keep money in offshore accounts so we can respond quickly to international emergencies without waiting for currency exchanges and banking delays. How did you know I was wondering about that? Rebecca smiled. Lucas told me you might have questions about our financial structure. He said you seemed like someone who did her research. What would you do if someone anticipated your every move? Do you think they're one step ahead, or just being honest? Let me know below. Just then, Lucas appeared at the entrance to the office space. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much, but he smiled when he saw Naia. How's the orientation going? Very well, Rebecca answered. Naia was asking some smart questions about our accountability measures. Good. I'd be worried if she wasn't. Lucas turned to Naia. Could I speak with you privately for a moment? They walked to his office, a surprisingly modest space with more photos of foundation projects than corporate awards. Lucas gestured for her to sit while he closed the door. So, he said, settling behind his desk, how long have you been investigating me? The directness of the question took Naia's breath away. I don't know what you mean. Naia! Lucas's voice was gentle but firm. I've been in business for 15 years. I know when someone's running a con, and I know when someone's fishing for information. You're not a desperate single mother. Well, you are a single mother, and you are struggling financially, but that's not why you approached me yesterday. Naia felt her carefully constructed cover story crumbling. How do you know? Your hands, for one thing. You have ink stains on your fingers from taking notes, calluses from typing, and your nails are short and practical. Those are a writer's hands. Plus, you asked very specific questions about my business operations, and you were way too interested in my foundation work for someone who was just grateful for a free meal. Lucas leaned forward, his blue-gray eyes intense. The question is, why are you investigating me? What do you think I've done? Naia stared at him for a long moment, weighing her options. She could continue lying, but he'd already seen through her cover. She could run, but that would mean abandoning months of work and potentially losing the story that could make her career. Or she could tell him the truth and see what happened. "I'm a freelance journalist," she said finally. "I've been investigating allegations that your foundation is being used to launder money." "What kind of allegations?" "Financial records showing transfers to shell companies, payments to private security firms, donations that don't seem to reach their intended recipients." Lucas nodded slowly. "And you decided to expose me by posing as someone in need." "I needed to see how you really treat people when you think no one important is watching." "And what did you conclude?" Naia hesitated. "That either you're an incredible actor, or my sources were wrong about you." Lucas was quiet for a moment, studying her face. "Show me what you have." "What?" "Your evidence. The financial records, the allegations. Show me what convinced you I was a criminal." Naia pulled out her phone and scrolled to the documents she'd photographed. "These transactions, for one thing. $3 million to an account in the Cayman Islands that's linked to your foundation but has no clear purpose." Lucas looked at the screen and sighed. "That's our Hurricane Maria Relief Fund. We keep emergency money offshore so we can respond to disasters quickly. The Cayman account is managed by our international aid partners." "What about this payment to Blackwater Security?" "We work in some dangerous areas. Food distribution in gang territories, building projects in conflict zones. Sometimes we need protection for our volunteers." For every suspicious transaction Naia showed him, Lucas had a reasonable explanation. Either he was prepared for every possible question, or her investigation had been based on incomplete information. "Who gave you these documents?" Lucas asked. "I can't reveal my sources. Even if your sources might be lying to you?" Naia felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" Lucas turned his computer screen toward her and pulled up what looked like a secure database. "These are internal emails from Mitchell Corporation, dated about 7 months ago. Right around the time your investigation started." Naia read the messages with growing horror. They detailed a plan to discredit Lucas Montgomery's foundation by leaking misleading financial information to journalists. "Mitchell Corporation," she said slowly. "They're the defense contractor that lost the city's homeless services contract to your foundation. $500 million over 3 years. They were not happy about losing that bid." Lucas scrolled through more emails. "Looks like they decided to try to destroy our reputation instead of improving their own services." "These could be faked." "They could be. But they're not." Lucas pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Agent Foster? It's Lucas Montgomery. Could you come up to my office? I have someone here who needs to see what you showed me yesterday." He hung up and looked at Naia. "FBI agent Sarah Foster has been investigating Mitchell Corporation for fraud and corruption. Turns out, we're not the only organization they've tried to destroy with false evidence." Within minutes, a serious-looking woman in a dark suit appeared at Lucas's door. "Agent Foster, this is Naia Robinson. She's the journalist who's been investigating me based on the fabricated documents." Agent Foster studied Naia carefully. "Ms. Robinson, you're in a very fortunate position. Most people who get caught up in Mitchell's disinformation campaigns end up destroying innocent lives before they learn the truth. The documents I have are sophisticated forgeries. We've been tracking Mitchell's operation for 8 months. They specialize in creating fake evidence to destroy their competitors." Agent Foster opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. This is what a real investigation into Lucas Montgomery's foundation looks like. Naia read through page after page of financial audits, beneficiary interviews, and impact assessments. Every piece of evidence showed the Montgomery Foundation doing exactly what it claimed to do: feeding families, housing the homeless, providing medical care to those who couldn't afford it. "I'm an idiot," Naia said quietly. "You're a journalist who was fed false information by people with a lot of money and no conscience," Lucas corrected. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" Naia looked up at him, seeing clearly for the first time since she'd started this investigation. "Help you expose them." Agent Foster smiled. "That's exactly what we were hoping you'd say." "What do you mean?" Lucas leaned forward. "Mitchell Corporation is still feeding false information to other journalists. We need someone on the inside, someone they trust, to help us gather evidence of their disinformation campaign." "You want me to be a double agent?" "We want you to be a journalist who's willing to get the real story, even if it means admitting you were wrong about the first one." Naia thought about her editor's deadline, about the exposé that would now never be written, about Caleb waiting for her at Mrs. Park's apartment, and the job offer that could change their lives. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I want the exclusive rights to the real story. The investigation into Mitchell, the disinformation campaign, all of it." "Done," Lucas said immediately. "And I want to keep working here. Not as a cover story, but because I actually want to help." "Also done." Agent Foster stood up. "We'll need to move quickly. Mitchell is planning to release another wave of false documents next week, targeting 3 more charities. If we can catch them in the act, we can shut them down permanently," Lucas finished. Naia felt a surge of excitement that had nothing to do with her career prospects. For the first time in months, she was working on a story that mattered, with people who were fighting for something bigger than themselves. "What do you need me to do?" Have you ever realized you were completely wrong about someone and had to start over? How did it feel? Share your experience in the comments. Lucas and Agent Foster spent the next hour briefing Naia on Mitchell Corporation's operation. The defense contractor had been systematically destroying non-profit organizations that competed for government contracts, using fabricated evidence and planted stories to ruin reputations and steal funding. "They're good at what they do," Agent Foster explained. "The documents look authentic, the financial discrepancies seem real, and they always target organizations that are doing legitimate good work." "Why haven't you arrested them yet?" "Because they're careful. Everything is done through intermediaries and shell companies. We need someone inside their operation to get the evidence we need for a conviction." Lucas pulled up a secure email account on his computer. "This is where you'll receive instructions from Mitchell. They've been sending you information for months, but they're about to make direct contact." As if on cue, a new email appeared in the inbox. Naia read it with growing amazement. "They want to meet with me tomorrow night to discuss expanding our partnership." "Perfect," Agent Foster said. "We'll wire you up, give you some backup, and see what they're really planning." "Is this dangerous?" "Mitchell's people are corporate criminals, not violent offenders. But we'll have agents nearby just in case." Naia nodded, her heart racing with nervous excitement. "What about Caleb? I can't put him at risk." "He'll be safe," Lucas said quietly. "I'll make sure of it." Something in his tone made Naia look at him more carefully. Throughout this entire conversation, he'd been protective of her, supportive of her work, even after learning she'd been trying to destroy him. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. I spent months trying to ruin your reputation. I lied to you, investigated you, probably caused you a lot of stress and worry. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Because you were trying to do the right thing. You thought I was stealing from people who needed help, and you wanted to stop me. I can't fault someone for that kind of moral courage, even if it was misguided. But still. And because, Lucas continued, his voice softer now, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since yesterday. Not the desperate single mother you were pretending to be, but the real you. The woman who's smart enough to uncover a conspiracy, brave enough to confront a billionaire, and dedicated enough to take care of her nephew while building a career. Naia felt heat rise in her cheeks. Lucas. I know this is complicated. I know we met under strange circumstances, and I know you probably don't trust me completely yet. But I want you to know that my offer yesterday was real. The job, the support, the chance for a fresh start. All of it was real. Agent Foster cleared her throat. Should I leave you two alone? No, Naia said quickly, though she couldn't quite meet Lucas's eyes. We should focus on the mission. But as they spent the rest of the afternoon planning her undercover meeting with Mitchell Corporation, Naia found herself stealing glances at Lucas. The way he listened intently to every suggestion, how he always asked if she was comfortable with each part of the plan, the protective way he talked about keeping her and Caleb safe. This was the man she'd been trying to destroy for 6 months. The man who'd turned out to be everything she hadn't expected. Kind, generous, genuinely committed to helping people. The man she was starting to fall for, despite every rational reason not to. When their planning session ended, Lucas walked her to the elevator. Naia, he said as the doors opened, whatever happens tomorrow night, I want you to know that meeting you changed everything for me. What do you mean? I've spent years building walls around myself, keeping people at a distance because it felt safer. But yesterday, when you looked at me with those eyes and asked for help, I remembered what it felt like to want to be someone's hero. The elevator doors started to close, but Lucas caught them. Be careful tomorrow night, he said. Come back safe. As the elevator carried her down to the lobby, Naia pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. She'd come here to expose a criminal and ended up falling for the man she'd meant to destroy. Tomorrow night, she'd help bring down the real criminals. But tonight, she had to figure out what she was going to do about Lucas Montgomery, and the feeling she definitely shouldn't be having for a man she'd met less than 48 hours ago. The next evening, Naia sat in her car outside the upscale Chicago Athletic Association hotel, her hands trembling as Agent Foster attached a tiny recording device to her collar. Remember, Foster said quietly, we need them to admit to fabricating documents and targeting specific nonprofits. Don't push too hard. Let them think they're recruiting you. And if something goes wrong, we'll be listening to every word. Agent Martinez is at the bar. Agent Kim is in the lobby. You're not alone. Naia nodded, checking her reflection in the rear-view mirror. She dressed the part of an ambitious journalist willing to bend ethics for a big story. Sharp blazer, confident makeup, hair pulled back in a severe bun. Lucas is watching Caleb? Foster asked. Yes. He insisted on taking him to some children's museum. Naia's chest warmed at the memory of Lucas's face when she'd asked if he could babysit. Pure joy, like she'd given him the greatest gift imaginable. He cares about you. It's complicated. Is it? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Good man, genuine feelings, shared values. What's complicated about that? Naia didn't answer, but Foster was right. The only thing complicated was her own fear of trusting someone who seemed too good to be true. "Time to go," Foster said. "Good luck." The hotel's rooftop bar was exactly the kind of place where corporate conspiracies would be hatched. Dim lighting, private alcoves, expensive whiskey that loosened tongues. Naia spotted her contact immediately. A sharp-suited man in his 50s sitting alone at a corner table, checking his watch. "Ms. Robinson?" He stood as she approached, extending his hand. "David Mitchell. Thank you for meeting me." Mitchell himself. Naia hadn't expected the CEO to handle this personally, which meant whatever they were planning was bigger than she'd thought. "Mr. Mitchell, I have to admit, I'm curious about why you wanted to meet in person. Please, sit." Mitchell gestured to the chair across from him. "Can I order you a drink?" "Just water, thanks." Mitchell ordered for both of them, then leaned forward with the practiced smile of a man used to getting what he wanted. "I've been following your work on the Montgomery Foundation with great interest. Your investigation has been thorough." "Thank you. Though I have to say, some of the financial discrepancies weren't as clear-cut as they initially appeared." "Oh." Mitchell's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" "Well, some of the transactions I flagged turned out to have legitimate explanations. Disaster relief funds, security for international operations, that sort of thing." "I see." Mitchell sipped his whiskey, studying her face. "And how did you discover these explanations?" "Basic follow-up reporting. I spoke with some of the Foundation's partners, cross-referenced their public filings." It was a careful lie, designed to make Mitchell think she was losing confidence in the story without revealing that she knew about the fabricated documents. "Ms. Robinson," Mitchell said slowly, "what would you say if I told you there were other documents? Evidence that would make your case against Montgomery absolutely ironclad." Naia's pulse quickened. "What kind of evidence?" Mitchell pulled out a tablet and showed her a series of what looked like bank records. Internal financial statements showing Montgomery personally profiting from foundation donations. Email communications discussing how to hide assets from auditors. Documentation of fake charity events designed to embezzle money. The documents looked incredibly convincing. Professional formatting, authentic-looking headers, detailed transaction records. If Naia hadn't known they were fake, she would have been completely convinced. "These are comprehensive," she said carefully. "They are. And they're yours, along with a significant bonus for your excellent work, if you're willing to expand your investigation." "Expand how?" Mitchell leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Montgomery isn't the only corrupt non-profit leader in Chicago. We've identified 3 other organizations that are using similar schemes to steal from donors and taxpayers." He showed her photos of the directors of Chicago's largest homeless shelter, a children's literacy program, and a veteran support organization. "All of them?" Naia asked, genuinely shocked by the scope of what Mitchell was suggesting. "All of them. The non-profit sector has become a haven for fraud, Ms. Robinson. Good people donate their hard-earned money thinking they're helping the less fortunate, and these criminals pocket the cash while the truly needy suffer." The passion in Mitchell's voice was convincing, even knowing it was all lies. He genuinely seemed to believe he was fighting corruption, which made him even more dangerous. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A series of exposés for major non-profit leaders brought down by careful investigative journalism. Your byline on the biggest corruption story Chicago has seen in decades." "And what do you get out of it?" Mitchell smiled. "The satisfaction of seeing justice done. and perhaps some of the government contracts that are currently being wasted on these fraudulent organizations. There it was, the real motive. Mitchell Corporation wanted to eliminate the competition for lucrative government contracts by destroying the reputations of legitimate nonprofits. This is a big story, Naia said carefully. I'd need time to verify all this evidence. Of course. But time is a factor here. Mitchell's tone turned urgent. Some of these organizations are about to receive major new funding. If we don't act quickly, millions more dollars will be stolen from people who can't afford to lose them. How quickly? I'd need your first article published by Friday. That's 3 days from now. 3 days to destroy 4 innocent organizations and the thousands of people they helped. Naia felt sick thinking about how close she'd come to being part of this conspiracy. That's very fast, she said. Good journalism sometimes requires quick action. I can offer you $50,000 as a bonus for meeting that deadline. $50,000. More money than Naia had ever seen at once, offered to destroy people who were doing genuine good in the world. Mr. Mitchell, she said slowly, can I ask you something? How did you first become aware of these irregularities? We have people throughout the non-profit sector, whistleblowers who are tired of seeing corruption go unpunished. And they all came to you, a defense contractor. Mitchell's smile faltered slightly. I've always been committed to civic responsibility. When people bring me evidence of wrongdoing, I feel obligated to act. Even when acting might benefit your own business interests. The temperature at their table seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mitchell's friendly mask slipped completely, revealing something much colder underneath. Ms. Robinson, I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm just trying to understand the full scope of what you're asking me to do. Mitchell leaned back in his chair, reassessing her. Are you having second thoughts about our partnership? I'm having questions about it. What kind of questions? Naia took a deep breath, knowing she was about to cross a line she couldn't uncross. Questions like why a defense contractor would spend so much money and effort targeting non-profit organizations that don't compete with your core business. I think you're overthinking this. Or questions like how you manage to obtain internal financial documents from multiple organizations that would normally be highly secure. Mitchell's hand tightened around his whiskey glass. Ms. Robinson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Has there? Because I'm starting to think this isn't about exposing corruption at all. I think it's about eliminating competition for government contracts by any means necessary. That's a very serious accusation. It's a very serious crime. The silence stretched between them, heavy with tension. Finally, Mitchell set down his glass and smiled, but it was nothing like his earlier warmth. You know, he said conversationally, investigative journalism can be a dangerous profession, especially for single mothers who don't have anyone to protect them. Ice flooded Naia's veins. Are you threatening me? I'm simply observing that accidents happen. Car crashes, home invasions, tragic incidents involving children who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Naia's hand moved instinctively to the recording device on her collar, praying it was picking up every word of Mitchell's threats. Mr. Mitchell, I think this meeting is over. I don't think so. Mitchell gestured subtly, and Naia noticed 2 large men in suits moving to positions near their table. You see, Ms. Robinson, you know too much about our operation to simply walk away. Your operation? Did you really think this was just about Chicago? We've been systematically destroying non-profit competitors in 12 major cities. Hundreds of millions in government contracts redirected to organizations that understand how business really works. Mitchell was confessing everything, apparently confident that Naia would never be able to repeat what she was hearing. And if organizations won't play along, you destroy them with fake evidence. Fake is such an ugly word. We prefer creatively interpreted. Mitchell's smile was shark-like. The beauty of our system is that no one questions negative stories about charities. People want to believe that do-gooders are secretly corrupt. You're destroying organizations that feed hungry families. We're eliminating inefficient competition. The free market works, Ms. Robinson, even in the charity sector. Naia felt rage building in her chest. What about the people those organizations help? The homeless families, the sick children, the veterans who can't afford medical care. Collateral damage. Every successful business operation has acceptable losses. You're talking about human beings. I'm talking about profit margins. Mitchell leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to publish those 4 exposés exactly as we've outlined. You're going to take your $50,000 and disappear from Chicago. And you're never going to mention this conversation to anyone. And if I refuse, then you and your nephew will have a very unfortunate accident. Car brakes fail all the time, especially on vehicles that aren't properly maintained. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between doing the right thing and protecting someone you love? What did you do? That's when Agent Foster's voice crackled through Naia's hidden earpiece. We've got enough. Say the code word and we'll move in. Naia looked at Mitchell's confident face, at the 2 bodyguards positioned to block her escape, at the tablet full of fabricated evidence designed to destroy innocent people. Mr. Mitchell, she said clearly, I think you should know that this conversation is being recorded, and the FBI has been listening to every word. Mitchell's face went white. That's impossible. Spotlight, Naia said loudly, the code word that would bring the agents running. Within seconds, the rooftop bar erupted in controlled chaos. Agent Foster appeared from behind the bar, her weapon drawn, while Agents Martinez and Kim flanked Mitchell's table from both sides. David Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, and making terroristic threats. Mitchell's bodyguards tried to run but were immediately tackled by additional agents who seemed to materialize from nowhere. The other bar patrons scattered, leaving Naia sitting alone at the table with her heart hammering in her chest. Are you okay? Foster asked, helping Naia to her feet. I think so. Did you get everything? Every word. Confessions to conspiracy in 12 cities, threats against you and your nephew, admissions of fabricating evidence. He basically handed us everything we need to put him away for the next 20 years. As Mitchell was led away in handcuffs, he turned back to Naia with pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over, he snarled. I have resources you can't imagine. Actually, Foster said cheerfully, your assets were frozen about 10 minutes ago, along with those of everyone in your organization. Turns out, when you confess to federal crimes while being recorded, judges are very accommodating about search warrants. Naia watched the man who'd tried to destroy so many innocent lives being pushed into a police car, and felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with relief. It was over. Ms. Robinson? Agent Foster touched her arm gently. There's someone here to see you. Naia turned and saw Lucas walking toward them, carrying a sleeping Caleb in his arms. Her nephew was wearing a new t-shirt that said, Future Scientist, and clutching a small dinosaur toy. "How did it go?" Lucas asked quietly. "We got him. All of them, actually." Naia reached for Caleb, who stirred sleepily and settled against her shoulder. "How was the museum?" "Educational. Did you know that T-Rex had arms but couldn't use them to hug?" Caleb found that very upsetting. Despite everything she'd just been through, Naia laughed. "Poor T-Rex. Poor T-Rex indeed." Lucas's expression grew serious. "Agent Foster filled me in on what happened. Are you all right? He threatened you and Caleb." "I'm fine. We're fine." Naia looked up at him, seeing genuine concern in his blue-gray eyes. "Thank you for watching him tonight. I know it wasn't what you signed up for when you offered me a job." "Actually, it was exactly what I signed up for." "What do you mean?" Lucas hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Naia, can I tell you something? When I saw you in that restaurant, asking for help for your baby, it wasn't the first time we'd met." "What?" 3 months ago, you were at Chicago General Hospital with Caleb. He'd had a seizure, and you were in the emergency room, terrified and alone. Naia's mind raced back to that horrible night when Caleb had gotten sick and she'd rushed him to the ER, certain she was going to lose him too. "I was there visiting a foundation client," Lucas continued. "I saw you holding him, crying because you couldn't afford the treatment he needed. You never saw me, but I made sure the hospital bill was taken care of." "That was you." Naia stared at him in shock. "The anonymous benefactor who paid for everything? That was me. And when I saw you again yesterday, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I knew I was supposed to help you." Tears filled Naia's eyes. "Lucas, I've been looking for you for 3 months, hoping I'd get the chance to make sure you and Caleb were okay. When you walked into that restaurant, it felt like fate. Even though I was there to destroy you, especially because you were there to destroy me, it meant you cared about justice, about protecting people from predators. How could I not fall for someone like that?" Agent Foster cleared her throat. "Should I leave you two alone again?" "Yes," Lucas and Naia said simultaneously, then laughed. As the agents finished their work and the rooftop bar gradually returned to normal, Lucas and Naia found themselves alone with sleeping Caleb under the Chicago stars. "So what happens now?" Naia asked. "Now you write the real story. The one about how corporations try to destroy good people, and how sometimes truth wins anyway." "And after that?" Lucas stepped closer, close enough that she could see the hope in his eyes. "After that, maybe we see if this feeling between us is as real as it seems." "What feeling?" "The one that makes me want to protect you and Caleb from everything bad in the world. The one that makes me think about bedtime stories and family dinners and growing old with someone who makes me want to be better than I am." Naia's heart raced. "Lucas, we've known each other for 3 days. I've been in love with you for 3 months. I just didn't know your name until 3 days ago." The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable and terrifying in their intensity. "I'm scared," Naia admitted. "Of what?" "Of trusting this. Of believing that someone like you could want someone like me. Of letting myself hope for something that feels too good to be true." Lucas reached up and gently touched her face. "Naia, I've spent my whole life building walls to keep people out. You walked through them like they were made of paper. If that's not real, then nothing is." He leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet under the city lights, while Caleb slept peacefully between them. It tasted like hope and new beginnings and the promise of a future neither of them had dared to imagine. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Naia smiled up at him. "So," she said, "about that job offer. Still interested?" "Very. But I have some conditions." "Name them." "First, I want to expand our investigation into corporate fraud. Mitchell Corporation was just the beginning. There are probably dozens of companies using similar tactics." "Done. What else?" "I want the Montgomery Foundation to partner with other legitimate nonprofits to create a fraud prevention network. Share information, coordinate responses, protect each other." "Brilliant. What else?" "And I want you to take me on a proper date. One where I'm not pretending to be someone else and you're not being investigated for crimes you didn't commit." Lucas's smile could have powered the entire city. "That's the best condition yet." "When?" "How about Friday night? I hear there's this amazing new grant verification specialist starting at the Montgomery Foundation who might need someone to show her the best restaurants in Chicago." "I know just the guy for the job." 6 months later, Naia stood at the podium of the Chicago Press Club, accepting the Investigative Journalism Award for her exposé of the Mitchell Corporation conspiracy. The investigation had led to arrests in 12 cities, the recovery of over $200 million in stolen funds, and new federal regulations protecting non-profit organizations from corporate sabotage. In the audience, Lucas beamed with pride while Caleb, now 2 years old and much more vocal, clapped enthusiastically from his seat. "This award belongs to everyone who refused to let corporate greed triumph over human decency," Naia said into the microphone. "To the social workers and volunteers who rebuild lives every day. To the donors who give generously despite knowing that sometimes their trust is betrayed. And to the investigators who never stop fighting for truth, even when truth is complicated and messy and doesn't fit neatly into our preconceptions." She looked out at the audience, finding Lucas's eyes in the crowd. Sometimes the best stories begin with the worst assumptions. Sometimes we have to lose our way completely before we can find where we really belong. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we discover that the person we thought was our enemy was actually the love of our life waiting to happen. What's the most important truth you've learned about not judging people by first impressions? Share your story in the comments below. The applause was thunderous, but Naia barely heard it. She was too busy looking at the man who'd started as her target and become her partner in every sense of the word, and the little boy who called them both family. Later that night, as they put Caleb to bed in their shared apartment, the one with the beautiful view and the room that had been turned into the perfect nursery, Lucas pulled Naia into his arms. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "For what?" "The award." "For everything. For having the courage to ask for help when you needed it. For fighting for truth even when it was dangerous. For letting me be part of your family." "Our family," Naia corrected. "Our family," Lucas agreed, kissing her forehead. "Speaking of which." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Naia's breath caught. "Lucas. I know we said we'd take things slow, but 6 months of slow has felt like 6 years of perfect. Marry me, Naia. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to ask strangers for help again." Naia looked at the ring, a simple, elegant solitaire that caught the light like captured starlight, and thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. The desperation that had driven her to that restaurant, the lies that had brought them together, the truth that had set them both free. "Yes," she said, laughing as Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger. "Yes, absolutely yes." As they kissed in their kitchen, with Chicago sparkling outside their windows and their son sleeping safely down the hall, Naia marveled at how completely her life had changed. She'd asked a billionaire for his leftovers and ended up with a love story that would last forever. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes asking for help led to finding home. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to trust in second chances, the person who seemed too good to be true turned out to be exactly good enough to be real.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.